Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the hopeful elect of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. The Most High, the Heavenly Father, his Hebrew name is Yahweh. It's Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua. It's Yahweh Shah. So God, I give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether you can accept it or not. And the sincere salutation to all the occupant pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the outward through our listening and learning. A few sisters who are listening and learning. I'm Isaiah from GMS Orlando Camp coming at you another lesson in truth, facts, faith, and edification. Another daily edification. Lord's willing. This be edifying. And I titled this lesson, Examples of Weakness and Downfall. I got a few clips I'm going to play. One of them is like 17 minutes. Another one like it's another 10, 15, 12 minutes, whatever. These are examples. It's actually like prophecy and news. But I titled it Examples of Weakness and Downfall. Because Babylon the Great is collapsing, is deteriorating. The monetary system is deteriorating. The infrastructure, the economy, the economic system is collapsing, man. And we're sitting watching it as it play out. These are the chess pieces. This is the chessboard of Yahweh Shem Shah, and they are every day moving these chess pieces strategically. So, Lord willing, let's be edifying. I'm gonna pull up this first clip. These prophecies are playing out, man. So I'm gonna play this first. The title of this video is a brutal crime waves slamming America. It's like 17 minutes. Lord willing, it play. This is from RT News. This is for educational purposes only. This is not for monetary gain. I do not own the copyright to these videos. This is for educational purposes only. Lord's willing, and be edifying. So check this out. Matter of fact, let me turn the volume down because it'll be echoing. So I'm round it back a little bit.
The outpouring of grief and anger is once again happening here in America. Following two mass shootings and multiple acts of random crime, resulting in the loss of innocent lives. However, what makes the last 2 weeks' crime sprees different from other weeks is that for the first time, almost every demographic is represented, not only as victims, but also as perpetrators. I'm Scotty Nell Hughes, and on today's News View Tues, we are going to take a special look at what is motivating these crimes and ask whether or not what is being said, or more importantly, not said, is causing us to further divide.
And you heard what she said? She said to further divide. Now, what did Yahweh Shah say? This is Luke chapter 12. I didn't catch that at first. It's Luke 12 and 51, and it reads, Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. I tell you nay, but rather division. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house, divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. Okay, and when you go to Mark chapter 3, it tell you that, as a matter of fact, let's read that. Might as well read it. This is Mark 3 and 24. It reads, And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand but have an end. And this is what's going on in the earth, man. Okay, I got to read this. Isaiah 19, verse 2 reads, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." And this is what's going on. So Lord willing, be edifying.
Thank you for joining us today for a very important conversation, which many avoid because sometimes it might make one uncomfortable. Acts of violence have been plaguing the U.S. all in the month of March. RT correspondent Natasha Sweet walks us through these recent horrifying events.
And Shalom to everybody on the comment board. Shalom, Yahweh Shema B'Shai Barakatham, the water for tuning in.
From lethal carjackings to mass shootings, violence is on the rise in the U.S. It all comes as we inch our way closer out of the pandemic. But these events are far from what we can even consider to be normal.
Shalaki for the infomercial. Shalaki for that.
Take a look at this video where an Uber Eats driver hangs on for dear life in his vehicle while it's being stolen in D.C. last Tuesday. The car crashes, killing 66-year-old Mohammed Anwar. Police say two girls aged 13 and 15 assaulted the victim with a taser while attempting to steal the vehicle. The two were arrested and are being charged with felony murder and armed carjacking. Both have pleaded not involved, the juvenile equivalent of not guilty. Their next court hearing is scheduled for Wednesday. A GoFundMe page has been set up for Anwar's funeral costs. 4 teenage boys also arrested for other armed carjackings in D.C. just days later. On Saturday, local police arrested 2 13-year-old boys for 2 armed carjackings happening less than 2 hours apart. Later in the week, 2 other boys, ages 13 and 14, were also arrested in D.C. for an armed carjacking. In Henrico County, Virginia, a 13-year-old 8th grader was shot and killed while walking home from school with a friend by a 14-year-old boy last Friday. Authorities say the victim, Lucia Bremer, nor her friend knew the suspect. The juvenile was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and possession of a firearm. Prosecutors say he may be tried as an adult. Then, in Boulder, Colorado, last Monday, a grocery store shooting took the lives of 10 people, including 1 officer. 58 minutes of terror plaguing those inside.
I saw him run off. I ran in the other direction, and that was the last time I saw him.
I escaped death by about 10 seconds. If the cashier had checked me out 10 seconds faster, I would be dead right now.
Here you see 21-year-old Elmad Alyssa being escorted out of the scene in handcuffs. Authorities say Alyssa carried a rifle type of firearm and a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. His defense lawyer asked for a mental health assessment. He remains held without bail on 10 charges of first-degree murder. And following the tragedy, many lawmakers using the situation to propose gun legislation.
I've already committed to bringing universal background checks legislation to the floor of the Senate. The Senate Judiciary Committee under Chairman Durbin held a hearing to examine several common sense proposals to reduce gun violence this morning.
On March 16th, 3 Asian massage parlors in the Atlanta area were targets of a shooting reportedly carried out by the same suspect.
Police, fire, or an ambulance?
I don't know. We need like robbery. We need a robbery here. That guy, that's why we need a police,
That was the 911 call released by Atlanta police when an employee of Golden Spa was hiding from 21-year-old Robert Long. Long reportedly killed at least 8 people at 3 different massage parlors. Long claimed he had a sex addiction and apparently lashed out at what he saw as sources of temptation. But with 6 of the victims being identified as Asian women, many saw Long's acts as racially motivated violence. Protests emerging nationwide. Now, while all these crimes seem to vary in motive, authorities are still working to uncover specifics in all of these tragedies. Reporting for Newsview's Hughes, Natasha Sweet, RT. I want to give us the 360 view on this issue. We bring in our panel: legal and media analyst Lionel, Malika Abdul, conservative commentator, and Alan Orr of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in this conversation today. Lionel, I want to start with you because you're farthest away, to be honest with you. Do you think right now, in the place we are, considering we're coming out of the pandemic, that we can actually have an honest discussion about these crimes, the motivation behind them, and what we can do without having this idea of fear of retaliation for what you're saying might not actually be politically correct or fit a narrative?
No, absolutely not. No one is interested in discussing the facts before us. Nobody wants to talk about what really happened, what didn't happen, what usually happens. No, if you bring up race, gender, geographic location, if you talk about anything other than a blanket statement that it's a tragedy, you'll get into trouble. Or if you can somehow work in that we need to work on comprehensive gun laws, because you see, if we had gun laws, this wouldn't happen. They might be saying, but we have murder laws too. Why would those laws not work? Well, that's a good question. But to answer your question very succinctly, no, we can't. We have to just mouth the usual acceptable platitudes and move on, lest we feel the doom of consternation fall upon us.
Well, listen, I can already.
Hey, Con, I was just thinking about that. Kazak Bunyan Howard put this up. Ecclesiastes 10 and 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Hey, that's beautiful. I was thinking the same thing, but I was thinking about Galatians 6 and 7, right? What does it read? Let's read it. But it's the same. It's basically the same precepts, man. This is Galatians chapter 6 and 7. That's the spirit up. Galatians 6 and 7. Be not deceived, power is not marked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So Babylon the Great is reaping the benefits of his wickedness, man. And it's happening all over the four corners of the earth, man. Let's get back to this. I'm gonna get you, brother, precepts. I got 3 clips I want to play. I want to get this one. It's 26 minutes, but I'm only gonna play 17 minutes, man. I want you to see what's really going on out here.
Tell you just by what we're going to post is that, what the title of this is. I'm already going to get lots of hate emails, lots of hate tweets. You guys might get it too. I apologize ahead of time. These are good. You guys, but we need to have this conversation. Alan, do you think that is what the problem is? Why we're seeing a rise in crime? More importantly, younger crime. That's what got me about Natasha's story. We are seeing younger people now getting involved in these very violent crimes. Do you feel like right now we are at a place in America, and should we be talking about the difference between crime and hate crime and what is motivating them?
What's motivating it is Yahweh Shema Shah. This is Matthew 24 and 12. And it reads, and because iniquity shall abound. What's iniquity? Sins on top of sins, man. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And this is why. Because of iniquities, man.
Right. So our laws talk about the difference between the levels of crime, as if hate crime has a higher.
See, he mentioned the laws. Well, Isaiah 24, verse 5 reads, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. Who are the inhabitants that's defiling the earth? The Job 9 and 24s. Because they, who Esau Edom, have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant, therefore have the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. This is why, man.
Sort of tension level, because they want to sort of deter that. But exactly as said previously, that if the deterrent is the crime and the murder laws, then perhaps that won't turn it away. So therefore, you will need some resource levels to say, well, maybe we can't make resource guns and do some gun sort of take care of guns and the like. But I think the question isn't really about having a true conversation. It's about the root cause, which has been COVID, high employment, educational gaps, a lack of infrastructure, and basically the whole sort of theme around the United States right now, where there are constant protests everywhere. Our capital was recently besieged. So it sort of gives this sort of violence beget violence, which is a very American thing, right? We watch it all the time on television. Those are the top shows.
Well, and that's the thing, Malik. How much does pop culture have to do with this conversation? Whether we're talking about the music that's happening right now, the movies that people are able to watch, is pop culture having the influence and having a negative influence on the events?
Well, gee, I hope I don't get the arrows that are going to be truly shot my way, but I'm going to say something a little different here. I think that those elements are important. Even pop culture is important. But we're really talking about personal responsibility. The 13 and 14-year-old, that has nothing to do with resources. It actually happened in the Navy Yard area where there are $500,000, $1 million condos, really a hop, skip, and a jump away from my home. Now, obviously, I don't live in that neighborhood, but we're really talking about personal irresponsibility. I don't think that those other elements, they contributed in some way, but I don't think that that has anything to do with it. And too often, what we've seen is that when we've had these conversations, and actually, I'll circle back very quickly to what my favorite colleague Lionel said, I agree. We actually can't have this discussion, honestly, because we really don't want to really dig in. What we like to talk about is white supremacy. That's when we're talking about race. But outside of that, we don't get the discussions at all because we see that so many of these instances, whether there are the culprits are Black or Hispanic or any of that, we don't like to talk about that because we're concerned about cancel culture. Well, if we want to have an honest conversation about it, I'm all for it. And I think we're well past that time where we need to do that.
Alan, you heard what Malik said. What is your thoughts on that? Is it become basically down to race and not being able to talk about one versus the other?
Man, in these scriptures, that's all it's about, man. And that's what the Lord is doing. It's finna be everybody, one realm against another, man. One people against another. That's what's coming down. This is our Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 and 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. You see, hey, listen, if things was done decent and in order, according to these laws, statutes, and commandments of the Bible, the cities would be well off, man. But you got to understand, we're in captivity. This is not our rulership. This is not our kingdom. So the Lord is showing these examples for Jake to wake up and repent and convert and be healed, that his sins may be blotted out. This is verse 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. But an unwise king destroyeth his people. What was the lot of the Job 9:24s? To bring destruction, death, and to vex you, man. That's their lot, right? It said their turn in Isaiah 29:16, their turn of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay, right? It shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. Who is the potter? Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah. This is for us to look at the examples of what's going on in the world and to repent, man. You got to remember, in Leviticus 26:33, the Lord say he will scatter us among all the nations, and he will send a sword after us until we are consumed. Consumed to what? That it's only going to be a remnant of us left, man. That's why he said in Deuteronomy 32, I will see what the end shall be. What's the end of Israel? It's going to be a remnant left here, man. And I always say this, man. You so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians, you 12 tribes of Israel, are the main character in the movie. Who is the second main character? Esau, Edom. Everybody else is just extras, man. They just collateral damage and casualties of war, man.
Out of all the stories that you presented tonight that I know all the facts, that only one has a race factor. The others are just crime, right? Because in most of these countries, the one thing that is, they're all American. So when someone talks about white supremacy and race issues, yeah, it's very American as apple pie. So yes, we need to address those issues that cause for the structure. And the very conversation that we have right now about society, resources, and education, addressing our crime, because we can't lock everybody up, because that doesn't work as well as the crimes don't work, tells us that we have other issues that we need to address. And so if the root cause is in some kind of national basis or in racism, then yeah, we should address that. But if it's also in resource basis and people just not having access and maybe not having the appropriate resources to get an education to feel like this isn't the appropriate thing to do, an appropriate civics lesson to say this isn't the appropriate thing to do for society, then those are the problems that we need to address. Sort of saying that these people are just flawed isn't a very American thing to say.
Well, I want to bring in Manila Chen, who's host of In Question here on RT America. Manila, when this happened a week and a half ago, I reached out to you and I had a conversation about it as well. I want to talk about the Atlanta spa shooting. I think that's what I was referring to as the known hate crime that's been identified. When it happened, there were marches, there were corporate calls to actions, there were social media hashtags. But sadly, the violence did not stop despite all of that. And I want to warn our audience of the graphic footage we are about to show that has emerged. And it's of an Asian man who was pummeled unconscious by a stranger on the Brooklyn subway train that just has come out. Then there was another attack also in Manhattan just yesterday where a 65-year-old woman was kicked to the ground, her head stomped on, and anti-Asian remarks were made.
Oh, wow.
This is a building worker was standing there and watching. That's just as shocking and did not come to her aid. Manila, these stories are not new to you. You've covered them as a journalist, but also as a member of the Asian American community.
Wow.
You know, do you feel the reaction last week that we saw initially that came out had any long-term effect on bringing the spotlight to the anti-Asian hate crimes that are happening in America today?
Hey, you see that in Israel? That wouldn't be, man. If we was in the land of righteousness, of everything was all righteous, that would not be so, man. That guy would have got put to death for that, man. He just stomped that lady. She was 65, man. But an unwise king, I gotta read this again. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. Man, that would never be, man. But in this land, the land of the free and the home of the brave, the land of opportunity, these type of things happen, man, which is wickedness. But we know why it's so. Everybody come back in their lot, man. Your lot is your lot. Proverbs 16 and 3 say the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of Yahweh Shem Shah. So your lot is your lot, but this is wicked, man. That's why crime spike. That's why the crime spike in the U.S., man. This is the Lord showing us examples of this place is falling, man. What are you going to do to receive, to seek the mercy and compassion of Yahweh Shem Shah, man? The doors of mercy are closing, but we still got time.
Well, I think what happened in Atlanta, I think really galvanized the Asian American community who before that, I think we kind of felt like we were the invisible minority. I mean, we were often used as the model minority myth and you know, we're not a monolithic group, right? People have different experiences, different waves of different groups of Asians that came here. So we've had very different experiences. I want to address real quickly the white supremacy, you know, that people are directing towards not only what happened in Atlanta. I think that was more of a sexual in nature supremacy, not a white supremacy issue that comes from, you know, a different kind of sexual deviancy. However, that's a problem directed towards Asian women and how we've been marginalized to be nothing more than sexual beings that you can discard like a sex doll. I think that was the problem in Atlanta. By and large, I don't believe personally that white supremacy is the huge problem facing the Asian American community. If you talk about white supremacy in the way of the KKK, there's no more than maybe about 5,000 or so Klan members across a country of 330 million people. So I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem here is that we have an empathy problem in the US. I think a lot of it comes from that cancel culture where you do one thing wrong, and I think Malik touched on this. You do one thing wrong, and you are forever marred for life. You are labeled whatever that is in that one moment, because we have lost empathy in this country, and that's why we cannot get along. Okay.
Well, you know what? According to the scriptures, this is what the Heavenly Father Yahweh say. 2 Ezra 15:46. And thou, Asia, that are partaker of the hope of Babylon, and not the glory of her person. Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. You see, Babylon the Great, you have been committing whoredom with them. Okay, Asia, thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith Yahweh Shem Shah, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. You see, and the glory of thy power shall be dried up as flour when the heat shall arise that is set over thee. Then it say, thou shalt be weakened as a poor woman with stripes. That's cold. But what we just seen this guy did to this lady that was 65, thou shalt be weakened as a poor woman with stripes, and as one chastened with wounds, so that thy mighty and lovers should not be able to receive thee. You see, these things is going to happen to you too. Verse 52 say, would I with jealousy have so proceeded against thee, saith the Lord, if thou hadst not always slain my chosen, exalting the stroke of thy hand, and saying over their dead when thou was drunken. You see, it says, set forth the beauty of thy countenance, the reward of thy whoredoms shall be in thy bosom, therefore shall thou receive recompense, like as thou hast done unto my chosen, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shah, even so shall power do unto thee, and shall deliver thee into mischief. And it started with them taking this what's this building that China had over here, that North America made them shut it down. I forgot the name of the building, but they made them shut it. Embassy, I think it was, some type of embassy building, whatever it was. They made them shut it down, man. You see, you the partaker of Babylon the Great. The Lord is recompensing you too, man. Ammon gonna get it. Moab, Ammon, Ham, Elam, Ishmael, they all gonna get it, man. One at a time, you're gonna pay, man. Or 2, 3 at a time. This is the Lord showing his power, man. Beautiful times we in, man. You have to pay. Hey, I was thinking about this, right? When Lazarus was sitting at the rich man's gate, what did the scripture say? That the dogs came and licked the wounds, man. Licked the sores, right? Who are the dogs that's licking the sores? That's representing Israel on the bottom, and these other heathen nations is making money off you, Jakes, man. Okay, Moab got the nail salons, right? Ammon got the Chinese spots, cooking the food. You got a lot of these Hamites, they know how to do hair real good. These African women, they do hair real good, man. These people come over here, they get these visas. Esau let them get visas and come over here, and they just, hey, but they ain't trying to help Jake. At the UN, there's no seat for the Hebrew Israelites in the UN, man. But every other nation is joined to this place. Why? Why so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians doesn't have anybody that represent them at the UN? Because this is not our kingdom, man. We were sent here for a punishment, for a judgment, man, for a condition, for the hopefully elect to see what's going on, to the 2/3 and repent, convert, and be healed, man. Salakia, let's finish this.
Okay, but that's the thing, Malik. Empathy, that is a key word, and all of you are shaking your heads on that. We all agree we've lost it. But how do you get it back? Case in point, Boulder shooting last week. A lot of people think that once the name was released of who it was, the story was gone. And you never saw the same type of reaction for the victims in that shooting that you might have seen in the one just days prior. Do we not have enough empathy? Should we put the spotlight on those victims, regardless of who they are, what they are, where they're at, when it happens, so that we try to deter others from doing it again to another community?
If I could dance on camera, I would be doing that right now. You're absolutely right, Scotty. And I think part of the problem is it goes back to people being afraid to get into certain discussions. Well before what happened in Atlanta, and I think her name is Dion TV or something. I follow her on Instagram. She's an Asian American reporter out of San Francisco. She has posted story after story after story of attacks on the Asian community. I do believe that we need to make a distinction between attacks on people who happen to be Asian American and those that are actually hate crimes. Those are two different things, but what we've done is we've conflated the two, where it's much sexier to talk about what, everybody wants to have these Stop Asian Hate signs only when it's related to white supremacy. What they believe is white supremacy. But any of these other instances, for instance, what you talked about in Manhattan, what you talked about in Brooklyn, you will never hear a conversation about let's protect Asians and tying that to the race of the culprit. We need to get out of the race discussions at all and talk honestly about the victims. Victims matter. That's what we should be talking about.
Good versus evil. And Lionel, I want to bring you in on an element that we haven't brought up, is that, do you think that there are actually people, and I think we can actually all agree, that there are people and there are groups that actually benefit from a continued hostile atmosphere and discourse?
Yeah, it's people that benefit from this, man. They call the Job 9 and 24s, man. Yeah, the Job 9 and 24s, man. They fund both sides of every war, man. Every catastrophic event, everything, man. The Job 9 and 24s, man. What does Ephesians 6 say? We are dealing with spiritual wickedness in high places, man. Okay? Matter of fact, let's read that. Yes, they benefit all day, every day. Ephesians 6, just to read the point. Ephesians 6 and 11. Put on the whole armor of power, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. When you look at the word wiles, it means trickery, cunning, crafty, conniving, the trickery, the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And of course, they benefit on both sides.
Are we allowing ourselves as a society to be manipulated by those groups to not find a solution, to not have that empathy? Are they actually...
Problem, reaction, solution. It's created by who? Again, the Job 9 and 24s. And she know that.
Taking advantage of this situation, unfortunately, at the cost of continued lives that we're losing.
Listen, man, the main two characters in Yahweh's movie is Jacob and Esau. Everybody else is collateral damage. And what the devil did was made two other nations join to him through his policies, his legislation, his democracy, his philosophies, his draconian laws. Like it say in Obadiah 1, right? All they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. That's why I said in Asia. That's why I said in 2 Ezra 15. Woe be unto thee, Asia, thou wretch, right? For you have made yourself like unto her, Babylon the Great. So all the nations that made their way as Babylon the Great, okay, the heart that sits on the scarlet colored beast, you will be destroyed.
Well, the answer is yes. And let me tell you, you're not going to find a solution to this. There's always been crime, and crime over a period of time escalates. Let me say something right now. I hate.
Hey, we got a saying about who? The original crime founder, man. Okay, the word crime go back to crimson, which is what? The color red. And what is red? What's the word? What's the word red known for? What is it significant with on the planet Earth today, all over the world? Power, man. Okay. The word, the color red, is known for power. Who's the red? We already know who they is, man. You know who they are. We don't even got to mention it. The word crime go back to crimson. The color red, power. Who's the power of the earth? The Job 9 and 24s.
Hate crimes. I hate that term because if you can tell me what a love crime is, good for you.
Do you know what happens to a prosecutor who has to prove a hate crime? Let's say in any of the cases you have. It'd be so easy to go in there and say, I have to prove that this defendant intended to kill or hurt these people. That's it. Point them out, identify them, that's done. But now, when you call it a hate crime, part of my level of proof, part of my burden of proof, is I've got to prove the motivation and the animus. And if I can't prove that the reason why these people in Atlanta were attacked was because they're Asian, or the reason why this Asian woman in Brooklyn was attacked because she was just there versus she was an Asian person, then I'm going to lose my case. We love this term, hate crime. It is a hobgoblin. You don't want to do that. You don't want to complicate the case. And I must say this quickly. Ever since I can remember as a kid, everybody's been always trying to confuse correlation and cause. We've been hearing everything in my lifetime from Ozzy Osbourne to before that to Frank Sinatra to Elvis to you name it to video games. If you look at cultures like Japan that have historically some of the most violent video games and culture at their hand, you don't see this. There is something that is malignant in our culture. What it is, what causes it, you tell me.
And we're going to tell you. And that's how I'm going to play on that video. And I'm going to tell you right now. Because the brother put it up on he got it right there on the comment board, man. We're going to read it. Let's read it. 2nd Ezra, chapter 11, man. Let's see. I think you put the whole thing up. This is 2nd Ezra, chapter 11. And I'm going to start at verse 42. You put up Kazab on your heart. Kazab on your heart. 2nd Ezra 11:33. And after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings. Tell me who? Babylon the Great. First and foremost, the Roman Empire. But Babylon the Great is the revived Roman Empire. 2nd Ezra 11:42. And it reads, for thou hast, matter of fact, I gotta read this. Let me pull this up. Because I usually start from verse 39. So let's read this. 2nd Ezra 11 in verse 39. Are not thou it that remaineth of the fourth beast, whom I made to reign in the world, that the end of their times may come through them? The end of who times? The Roman Empire. Come through who? Babylon the Great. And the fourth came and overcame, all the beasts that were past. This is, you can read this in Daniel the 7th chapter. And had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth, for thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable, thou hast loved the liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and have cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm, which is what? The time of Jerusalem, 70 AD. Therefore is thy wrongful dealings come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. Obadiah 1:3, the pride of the heart have deceived thee. The highest also have looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled, and therefore appear no more thy eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, the 7 heads and 10 horns, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body. It's talking about who? Babylon the Great. This Jeremiah 51, 25, it reads, Jeremiah 51 and 24, and I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all that evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Havushai. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord Yahweh, which destroyeth all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. They gotta pay, man. They gotta pay for all they have done. So let me pull this next clip. Hey, cause the Lord is really bringing down this world, man. He's really bringing these nations to the ground, man. So check this out. Lord, wouldn't it be edifying? Lord, wouldn't it play? Okay, so check this out.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. In California, over 60 unaccompanied migrant children being held at the San Diego Convention Center have tested positive for COVID-19. The convention center is currently holding over 700 children, according to local media. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is reporting Border Patrol facilities across the Texas-Mexico border are so overcrowded that border agents recently started holding hundreds of refugees under a bridge near McAllen where they're forced to sleep on the dirt.
Now you see that? Now I don't know if you ever seen the movie Scarface, but in the movie Scarface, they had the same thing under the bridge in Miami, man. Okay, when the Cuban, when Vanessa came over here during the time of this guy, what name is Castro, man. This is the same history repeating itself, man. They did this in the movie Scarface, man. And we keep telling Northern Kingdom, man. It's gonna happen to the Southern Kingdom too. These concentration camps, these FEMA camps, they've been waiting to use them, man. The Lord say in Jeremiah 15. What did the Lord say? Let's read this real quick. Jeremiah 15 and verse 1. Then said the Lord Yahweh unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind could not be towards his people. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth. And it shall come to pass that they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Who? The 2/3 saying this. Then shalt thou say unto them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for famine to the famine, and such as are for captivity to the captivity. FEMA camps, man. Concentration camps, man.
Have also been dropping off hundreds of them at bus stations and even hotels. This comes as a record number of asylum seekers are arriving at the southern border, fleeing extreme poverty, violence, and climate change in their home countries. Almost 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children are now in U.S. custody. Some 5,800 are in customs and border protection facilities, which are more like jails, not equipped to care for children. Tomorrow, the White House will be hosting a bipartisan congressional briefing on the border with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and Health and Human Services Secretary.
Hold on, Salakia. We got to run this back, man. Did you hear what she said? They trying to escape what? Let's run it back.
Seekers are arriving at the southern border, fleeing extreme poverty, violence, and climate change in their home countries.
Fleeing poverty. This is Jeremiah 29 and 17. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will send upon them the sword, the famine, and pestilence, and will make them like vile figs that cannot be eaten. They are so evil. And I will persecute them with the sword, with the famine, and with pestilence, and deliver them to be removed to all kingdoms of the earth, to be a curse and astonishment and hissing and reproach among all the nations, whether I have driven them. Why? The Lord said he's going to send these things upon Jake, man. There's another verse that said poverty, man. So let's play this.
Almost 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children are now in U.S. custody. Some 5,800 are in customs and border protection facilities, which are more like jails, not equipped to care for children. Tomorrow, the White House will be hosting a bipartisan congressional briefing on the border with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra in attendance. During President Biden's first news conference last week, he faced a number of questions about how his administration is handling the growing number of unaccompanied kids arriving at the southern border. He said the majority of asylum seekers are still, though, being turned away.
If you take a look at the number of people who are coming, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming to the border crossing are being sent back.
And a warning to our audience, this includes a graphic description of police violence. This coming as protests have erupted in Mexico over the police killing of Victoria Salazar, a 36-year-old Salvadoran woman and mother of two who'd been living in Mexico with a humanitarian visa. 4 police officers from the coastal city of Tulum have been charged with femicide after an autopsy concluded that her neck had been broken while in custody. Videos published by Mexican media show one of the 4 officers who arrested Salazar kneeling on her back, pinning her against the pavement as she cries out. She lays on the pavement face down, handcuffed, unconscious, while 3 other cops looked on before they eventually pick her up motionless, her body, and put her in the back of a police car before driving away. This is Salazar's mother, Rosabel Ariaza, speaking from El Salvador.
I feel indignation. I feel so powerless and angry. Justice for my daughter.
Victoria Salazar had reportedly lived in Mexico since at least 2018 when she was granted refugee status.
You see that? Yeah, how about Shema Shah? Have indignation, man. This Jeremiah 15:5. You see, Jake will not repent, man. For who should, this is Jeremiah 15:5. For who shall have pity upon thee, O Jerusalem? Or who shall bemoan thee? Or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest? Nobody's going to ask you this. Talking about she feel indignation. Hold on. Let's play that again, man. Let's play that again. Salaki.
Broken while in custody. Videos published by Mexican media show one of the 4 officers who arrested Salazar kneeling on her back, pinning her against the pavement as she cries out. She lays on the pavement face down, handcuffed, unconscious, while 3 other cops looked on before they eventually pick her up motionless, her body.
Didn't this just happen to George Floyd, man? Northern and Southern Kingdom is both want to get it. We are under the curses, man. If you don't repent and turn back to Yahweh Shema Shah, you are going to die a grievous death, man. Man, I gotta run it back. Salakia, man. Salakia.
Police officers from the coastal city of Tulum have been charged with femicide after an autopsy concluded that her neck had been broken while in custody. Videos published by Mexican media show one of the 4 officers who arrested Salazar kneeling on her back, pinning her against the pavement as she cries out. She lays on the pavement face down, handcuffed, unconscious, while 3 other cops looked on before they eventually picked her up motionless, her body, and put her in the back of a police car before driving away. This is Salazar's mother, Rosabel Ariaza, speaking from El Salvador.
I feel indignation. I feel so powerless and angry. Justice for my daughter.
Victoria.
You heard what she said? She said she feel indignation. Yahweh Shema Shah feel indignation, which is what? Righteous anger, man. Because you Jakes won't repent, man. I gotta read this again. Jeremiah 15:5. For who shall have pity upon thee, O Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, Salakia, or who will bemoan thee, or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest? Thou hast forsaken me, said the Lord Yahweh. Thou art gone backward. Therefore will I stretch out my hand against thee and destroy thee. I am weary with repenting. This is the Lord, man. He got indignation.
Victoria Salazar had reportedly lived in Mexico since at least 2018 when she was granted refugee status. Well, to look at how decades of U.S. intervention in Central America has contributed to this humanitarian crisis, we're joined in San Antonio, Texas, by the award-winning Salvadoran American journalist Roberto Lovato, author of Unforgetting, a memoir of family, migration, gangs, and revolution in the Americas, in which he recounts his own family's migration from El Salvador to the United States. We welcome you, Roberto, to Democracy Now! Talk about what we are seeing on the border. That's what you're investigating down on the border between Texas and Mexico. The horrendous story of Victoria Salazar and what this is emblematic of.
What Victoria? First of all, I'm happy to be with you again, Amy. It's been so many decades I've been on your show talking about some form of crisis in El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and in the Central American region. We've been here before. It's just there's different actors, different conditions, for example, like climate change. And so when you're looking at the murder of Victoria Salazar at the hands of Mexican police who asphyxiated her, not unlike the way George Floyd was asphyxiated. When you hear the mother say indignación, the indignity of the killing of this mother and two, you have a symbol along with the cages that, just in Donna, Texas, here in Texas, you have Biden making a major change in migration policy, which is going from iron cages to plexiglass cages that were discovered. And so between the plexiglass cages, which are expecting you to just not see them as cages, and the murder of Victoria Salazar, you have the ongoing epidemic of U.S. policy and the crisis that is not of migration as much as it's the crisis of capitalism backed by the kind of militarism and militarized policing that you see not just in the United States, but in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, on and on.
Roberto, I wanted to ask you, with this latest incident of the death of Victoria Salazar, there was, it must be said to the credit of Mexico that the officers were immediately arrested, obviously because of the video went viral, unlike what happened with George Floyd, that it took weeks and weeks before there were even indictments of the officers. And President Lopez Obrador did immediately condemn as brutality what he saw of this video. But can you talk about this this contradiction of a leftist leader in Mexico supposedly his government and his police participating in this constant crackdown on migrants coming from Central America, basically at the behest of either the Trump administration or now the Biden administration?
So first, let me read this before we hear what his answer be. This is Hosea. You jakes don't realize it's the Lord putting this work in, man. It's Yahweh Shem Shah that's doing all these things, man. It's Hosea 5:14, and it reads, "For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion," talking about the northern kingdom, starting with Ephraim. "For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. I will," it's a I, even I will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. This is the Lord doing this, man. Now this brother, before I play this clip, this brother, Azara Yahweh, he put up Isaiah 30:1. "Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with their covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin." So this girl mother talking about, I have indignation. Well, the Lord got indignation. You worshiping Santa Maria, Jesus Christos, you won't repent. Verse 2 reads, "That walk to go down to Egypt, and have not asked in my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. You got to get the other one. Isaiah 31:1. And it reads, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord Yahweh. Yet he also is wise, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of the evildoers, and against the help of them that work iniquity. Now the Egyptians are men, and not God, and their horses flesh and not spirit. When the Lord Yahweh shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping, the word hoping means to be helped, shall fall down, and they all shall fail together. Let's precept their precept. Isaiah 13:15. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, to my all the heathen nations. And everyone that is joined unto them, to my Jews, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, West Indian, Haitians, that's joined to these heathens, everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Okay? Plain, man.
Yeah, I would credit Lopez Obrador very little for his announcement, because there's been plenty of other Central Americans murdered, many other mothers, children murdered by Mexican police and military forces, and persecuted and hunted down like dogs. So as a former participant in the war in El Salvador, and as a leftist, I'm not sure I would even apply that to Lopez Obrador at this point. That said, you also have to look at the geopolitics behind Victoria Salazar that are happening right now. Just yesterday in the Washington Post, you can read about a negotiation that the Biden administration and the Lopez Obrador administration had, which was Biden giving the Mexican government something like 1.5 million doses of coronavirus vaccine in exchange, basically, for harder enforcement than what we're already seeing, as if the murder of Victoria Salazar doesn't tell us that things are going wrong in Mexico as well. So there's a big geopolitical game being played here, and the way the debate is being shaped, we're kind of put in the position as an audience to see just, are we going to be like Trump or not like Trump? Are we a good Democrat, bad Republican? When in fact it's a deeper history of U.S. policy that's founded on a foundation of cruelty, devalued life, and amnesia. As I say in my book, Unforgetting, the border is the ultimate machete of memory. It cuts up our memory so that we forget 30 years of genocide, mass murder, U.S.-sponsored militarism and policing, failed economic policies, neoliberal policies, backed by the IMF, the World Bank. I mean, we've been here before, Juan and Amy. I mean, these are all familiar terms. The new animal and the new beast in the room is climate change. That is intensifying things, and we're not even talking about people as climate refugees, which is what we should be doing.
And in terms of this issue of climate refugees, could you remind folks who tend to forget even what happened 5 or 10 years ago or this past summer, the impact of climate change on Central America?
When you're talking, climate science, climate and other sciences talk about Central America as a dry corridor, the corridor from Mexico all the way to Panama being the driest, rapidly drying region in the Americas. A region that's been characterized by massive flooding, drying up of lakes, so that the people that are migrating, some are fishermen or fisherwomen who can no longer fish, or crop cycles that are destroyed by drought. So you have people that lived off the land now having to leave their land to go to the cities in their countries, not finding work and then coming north. Or look at the fact that something like 54 to 67% of the populations in these countries, depending on the country, are living in the dry corridor. You know, you have in Guatemala half of the whole country is in the dry corridor. El Salvador, surface water, 90% of it is undrinkable, of the surface water. And Honduras just survived hurricanes Eta and Iota. So among the people you see on your television screens in these rather absurd news reports that are without context are people that are migrant refugees and refugees of failed U.S. economic policies of decades.
There you go.
The militarism and militarized policing that backs it up, as we saw in the case of Victoria Salazar.
You see, there you go, man. There you go. These things is happening because of who? The Job 9 and 24s, man. This is you see, he said for decades because of the U.S. policies, man. For decades. The brother put it up. I'm going to read it. This is Daniel. I'm going to get it from the phone, brother. Daniel 8 and 25. It reads, and through his policy also shall he cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, and shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. This is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, but it's talking about these Idumeans, man. The Job 9 and 24 still, man. Okay? Because that's what they had always been doing, man. From Alexander the Great all the way to Joe Biden, man. Nothing has changed. Okay? To the Job 9 and 24s, the ones that's behind the scene, man. This is Isaiah 14 and verse 5. The Lord have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. This is what we see happening, man. The Lord is destroying their palaces, man. He who smote the people in wrath, which is who? The Job 9 and 24s. He who smote the people in wrath with a continuous stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. This is a future prophecy of Babylon the Great sitting in the dust, man. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. This is future prophecy. Let you know that Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed. They break forth into singing. Yet the fir trees rejoice at thee. The cedars and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow is come up against us. When you go into the word fellow, it's talking about the ones that cut down the trees, man. Hail from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. Who is the hail? The other nations, man. Okay? It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth, which is who? The ones that's joined to your confederacy. It have raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. You see? Because what is that? Jeremiah 51? Let's read that. Jeremiah 51 and verse 7 reads, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand and made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Everybody's pissed off with this devil, man. Back in Isaiah 14 and verse 10, it say, he reads, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. That's total corruption. That's total corrosion, man. Babylon the Great is falling. Examples of weakness and a downfall. Let's continue. Let's finish this video, because I got one more. Lord willing.
And what is your take so far on the appointments of the Biden administration for people to handle Central America or Latin America policy?
For me, they're actually predictable. Okay, I mean, you can look at my Twitter feed, Rob Vato, and you'll see that I predicted in January that the Biden administration would introduce plexiglass cages. Their logic really becomes predictable after the 30 years I've been at this and that I talk about in Unforgetting. And so when I was expecting precisely that they would have this kind of intersectional empire approach, where now, hey, let's celebrate that a Cuban American is heading up the most militarized bureaucracy of the federal government that surveils, persecutes, hunts down, and kills migrants and others, or celebrate that Kamala Harris is not going to go into Central America to push policies, the same failed policies that we saw with the Bush administration's Plan Puebla to Panama, neoliberal economics, privatization, International Monetary Fund, and other policies backed up by militarism that's now disguised as policing and security. It's still the same formula when what's really needed is some form of reparation. Actually, these countries need to be first of all, they need to an apology, because the U.S. needs to acknowledge the failure of its model. Central America is nothing if not a mirror to the decline of the United States and the decadence of its foreign and domestic policy structures.
So, Roberto, you and Victoria Salazar's killing coming 2 months after 19 people, mostly migrants from Mexico, from Guatemala, who were shot to death, their remains burnt inside a truck in the northern Mexican state of Tamaulipas. At least a dozen Mexican police were arrested for possible involvement in that massacre. So, if you can talk about, and it's something you do so beautifully in your memoir, the policies, because now the questions are being asked of all the officials. Tomorrow, the Biden administration is going to brief members of Congress. They are trying to say in Spanish and English repeatedly, the border is closed. But does that mean the U.S. policy towards Central America is closed, is changing, is ending? I mean, when you look at what you call those decades of the U.S.-backed military repression in places like Guatemala, where over 150,000 mainly indigenous people were killed, in El Salvador, your country, tens of thousands of Salvadorans killed, U.S.-backed military death squads in government, and in Honduras, the staging ground for...
You see, we understand these is Jakes, man. These are Jakes getting put to death previously, man, because the Lord is tired, man. He's tired. This is Zechariah chapter 7 and verse 8. And the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto Zechariah, saying, Thus speak the Lord Yahweh of hosts, saying, Execute your judgment, and show mercy and compassion every man to his brother, and oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, the stranger, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine evil against his brother in your heart. Galatians 6:1 says, Ye that are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. Which, and starting with the apostles' great millstone, you have been getting warned for over 30 plus years, man. Verse 11 reads, But they refused to hearken, and pulled away the shoulder, and stopped their ears, that they should not hear. Yeah, they made their hearts as an adamant stone, lest they should hear the law and the words which the Lord Yahweh of hosts have sent in his spirit by the former prophets. Therefore came a great wrath from the Lord Yahweh of hosts. Therefore it is come to pass that as he cried, and they would not hear, so they cried, and I would not hear, saith the Lord Yahweh. Thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds and thousands of Jakes are getting murdered grievously every day, man. And it's from Yahweh Shema Shah for disobedience, man. That's why it's a beautiful thing for the Lord to show us every day, every morning. It say his mercies and compassions are new to us every morning, man.
The U.S. for the war against the Contras in Nicaragua. How does the U.S. government change this, turn this around?
How does it turn it around is a Nobel Prize winning question, Amy. I'm not even...
Let me read this real quick before you say that. Whatever he finna say, that's madness. This brother, Azara Yahweh, Proverbs 2 and 20. It reads, that thou mayest walk in the way of good men and keep the paths of the righteous. Verse 21, for the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. So like you, these pop-ups. This is verse 22. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it. Yeah, man. This is only for the righteous, man.
If you're going to begin to try to answer this enormously complex problem, I think you do have to firstly acknowledge the failure of.
And it's not a problem. You see, that's the problem. This is not a problem. It's the solution of Yahweh Shema Shah. And it's called judgment, man. Judgment. Let's read this. This is Zechariah. Zephaniah 3 and 5. The just Yahweh is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doeth he bring his judgment to light. Every morning doeth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame.
Immigration policy that's increasingly informed by
Look at that.
The Pentagon, believe it or not, as my friend Todd Miller and others have written about, and the way that the border is being militarized, the way immigration policy is being militarized. I mean, if you look at the quadrennial defense reviews of the Pentagon, the quarterly reviews that they give, they've been talking about migration and climate change as national security threats since the 90s. And so when I see the Biden administration introducing a gentleman named Ricardo Zúñiga, who, on the plus side, he was involved in normalizing relations with Cuba, but on, I would say, the minus from the perspective of the continent, he was involved in the destabilization of all these governments in Latin America as a member of the National Security Council under Obama. And so, it's plexiglass cages, it's, hey, we have people of color now heading up imperial policy. Hey, I've been going across 30 years of mass grave sites, as you know, Amy, and watching as forensics experts reconstitute the bones of memory. And I think really we need a recognition of the absolute and unadulterated failure of U.S. policy, which is actually not even a failure. It's designed to do this. And so the U.S. needs to just kind of, to start solving this, needs to stop interventionist policies and in economics that.
See, I gotta say something. We done with that. Nah. Jake always figured this devil policies work for them. They policies was never created for you, man. In 1776, on July the 4th, 1776, where was you so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians? Where were you at in 1776? You know where you was at? In slavery. So when they established these laws, these policies, they was not for you Jakes, man. These policies and laws in the land of Babylon the Great was for Esau, Edom, man. It was for them and their people. And you Jakes today feel like, oh, I got the First and Second and Third and Fourth and Fifth Amendment is for you. It's not for you. It's for your enemies, the adversaries. This is not our land. These are not our laws. These are not our policies. This have nothing to do with Hebrew Israelite customs, man. And I don't know how long it's going to take for you to get it, but this is not for you, man. But Jay still say, we want justice and we want peace. We just want to be left alone. Well, this ain't your land. These are not your people. They're your adversaries. This is Psalms 2021, a year of Yahweh Shema Shah's hastening. The hastening of Yahweh Shema Shah. You Jakes still talking about, can we just get along? Psalms 83 and 2. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and have consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom and Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hekarenes, Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. These 17 heathen nations hate your guts, man. But Jay still want to cleave to these devils, man. This is a short one from RT News. Just showing you how Babylon the Great is falling, man. More examples. Lord willing. They play. Check this out. Amen. Let's play this.
I'm Rick Sanchez, and I want to welcome all of you who are watching from all over the world, including those of you who are watching on your phones on the portable TV app. There are count them, two big pieces of news that are happening as we speak. Now, why in the world the U.S. media in general is ignoring these stories, it's kind of tough to reconcile. This weekend, China made it official. It is moving forward, indeed, with a $400 billion deal with Iran. What's the deal? Well, it goes something like this. China will pump $400 billion into the flailing Iranian economy. And for the next 25 years, Iran will pump a steady stream of oil into the Chinese economy. That's the deal. Why is China doing a deal with Iran? Because it
And Iran got some of the best oil over there too, man.
is making good, it says, on its promise to Iran based on the nuclear agreement both countries signed back in 2015. You remember that? Yeah, it's the same deal that the United States backed out of. President Biden now says he wants a new deal with Iran. But China is telling Mr. Biden, no, you can't sign a treaty and then back out and start over again. You have to honor your commitment, sir. So even if you won't, we will. That's China's talking point. That's their perspective for why they're doing this, right? So the United States' perspective seems to be that China is becoming obstinate and dangerous and may need to be put in its place. So here's what the United States is going to be doing. The U.S. is announcing war games. Here's some of the video or some of the pictures or images of these said war games that the United States has from time to time. It'll carry out these war games this summer to try and prepare for the eventuality of a war with China, while also having to fight, possibly at the same time, other countries around the world, including Russia. The Pentagon said,
Hey, it ain't possibly. It's going to happen, man. Obadiah 1:7. All the men of that confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Did you hear what he just said? Just run it back. You got to run it back. It's beautiful, man.
the United States is going to be doing. The U.S. is announcing war games. Here's some of the video or some of the pictures or images of these said war games that the United States has from time to time. It'll carry out these war games this summer to try and prepare for the eventuality of a war with China, while also having to fight, possibly at the same time, other countries around the world, including Russia. The Pentagon says these war games or military exercises are being designed to equip the U.S. military's top leaders on how to react to a fictional global crisis erupting on multiple fronts and how to move all the military pieces around, like the bombers and the aircraft carriers.
See, because you know why? Because they know that World War III is coming, and they trying to prepare the best that they can for Yahushua and the angels, man. In those chariots with that concentrated heat, those laser beams, man. Okay? This is what they doing, man. Because they know that their time is short. And they know these chariots that's been sighted all over the planet, that's in Zechariah 5:1, is about to enter into the house of the thief, as the scripture says in Zechariah 5. And they know they're going to be destroyed, man. So they're trying to best to prepare to fight against Yahushua and the angels, man. This was going on, man. And they also know, you heard them, that the other nations is going to destroy them, man. It's going to separate. I just read Obadiah, right? That was Obadiah 1:7. Now listen to Revelation 17. Revelation 17:16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Fire from what? Those intercontinental ballistic missiles. Verse 17. For Yahweh Shema Shah have put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of Yahweh Shema Shah shall be fulfilled. So they know that their end is drawing nigh, man.
But you know, there's something else here that at least I noted this as I was doing my research on this assignment, that there's something else in this report that kind of caught my eye as we look at these images of these war games. And maybe it's going to raise questions for you as well. The Pentagon also notes that these military exercises you see behind me are going to be used to set the future military budget of the United States. Ask yourself this question. Do you think when all is said and done after these war games, they will ask for less? Maybe, in fact, a better question is, have they ever asked for less? Let's get into this here on the News with Rick Sanchez, where
we know that they have spread their military too thin, man. Right? Just like the Roman Empire. Just like the Roman Empire, they spread their military too thin, and they couldn't pay them, man. And they couldn't pay all the soldiers, man. And the soldiers became what? They became mercenaries, man. Hey, so you see, hey, this is the Lord breaking down Babylon the Great slowly, man. Like it said in Isaiah 14, man. Their pomp is brought down, the worms spread over thee, the worms cover thee, man. That's total corruption, total corrosion, man. That's total annihilation, man. But the Lord is doing it slow. If you read about the story about Antiochus Epiphanes, how the Lord killed him slow, man. That's why in Daniel 8:25 it said, he shall be, he wrote them policies. It said he shall be broken with our hands. Because Yahweh Bashim Yahushua killed Antiochus Epiphanes slow, man. It said worms, his body was corroding, man, from the inside. It said he would stink so bad that his men couldn't stand to smell him, man. He couldn't even stand to smell himself, man. That's how the Lord destroyed Antiochus Epiphanes. And he also did Herod. He also did Herod like that too, man. Herod died some of the same grievous ways that Antiochus Epiphanes did when you read it, man. Antiochus Epiphanes and Herod died almost the same way, man. Go read it, man. Hey, so Lord willing to edifying, gotta give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rikakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether they can accept it or not, and a sincere salutation to all the Akim pushing this truth and believing this truth to the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hope for the elect. And shalom to the outwalk who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. Lord, what is edifying? Till next time, I say shalom. Wa Bible balls, the water for tuning in. May Yahweh Shema shall continue to bless you in your houses. Stay prayed up. Hey, the water for tuning in. Hey, because I bring Yahweh to put up Hebrews 10:31. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, man. Yeah. And that's why we fighting a good fight of faith, man. Doing the work, watching, being watchmen, man. Hey, because Babylon is falling, man. Just those little 3 clips, those 3 videos show you, man. And it's thousands and thousands more, man. The Lord is slowly. That's why I say in Isaiah 14, the worms is spread over thee and the worms cover thee. That's slow corruption, man. That's slowly being ate out, being consumed from the inside out, man. You go read the story about Antiochus Epiphanes and see how the Lord killed him, man. He killed him with a slow, grievous death, man. He did Herod the exact same way, man. Go read the stories, man. The Lord is slowly destroying North America, man. Babylon the Great. Shalom. The water for tuning in. The water. I know it's late. Spirit was on when I left the plantation. Till next time, I say shalom.